Yes.
You have lost this judicial review. You've been proved to be wrong in law. And as Lisa Nandy was saying, this might lead to many other such cases. Are you going to change the law?
Well, look, first of all, the government's position is very clear. It's disappointed in the outcome of this case. Of course, we respect the judicial system, but that's why we will be seeking to appeal it. And I don't think I can really say too much more whilst we pursue that appeal. But I think the key thing here is we're absolutely clear as a matter of policy, and of course we respect the law. We do not want her to return to the UK. We think that there is a threat. Not entirely clear to me what the Labour Party's position is on that, but the government's is clear.
You also said, last time we were talking about these kind of areas, that there were, I think there's 60-odd children, and I say children, who are in the ex-IS area, who are British by origin. And you've said in the past that you're going to bring those innocent orphan children back home. When is that going to happen? Because virtually nothing has happened since.
Well, that's just not true. I can't comment on some of the...
I think 3 have come back, but there's something like 60 still there, aren't there?
Yes, but it's not correct to say that nothing has happened. I can't comment on the operational implications of these things, but the government's policy is clear, as you described, which is that in relation to unaccompanied minors or orphans, we would want to make sure that we at least made the efforts to see and then whether it's practicable to get them home, precisely because, as you were quite right in quoting me on that, we regard them as the innocents of war.
Let me turn to what the Russian ambassador just told me. He was absolutely clear. He flatly denied that Russia had any involvement in trying to steal vaccine research from Britain. What's your response to him?
Of course, he would be rolled out to trot out that line in the same way as they denied responsibility for the 2018 nerve agent attack on Salisbury. And we haven't just very carefully, if I may, assembled the evidence on this. We've done so with the Americans and our Canadian counterparts. It is very clear that as the world was coming together and we were trying to drive this vaccine collaboration, R&D, to get a vaccine for this terrible virus, Russia has been engaged, and frankly, for what seems to be for the motive of profit, has been trying to sabotage it effectively.
But you see, what the Russians always say is the British throw out these allegations. There's never any evidence. They just make these allegations. Do you have evidence that you can show people that would convince them?
Well, first of all, we don't have a practice of just throwing out these assertions. When we made it very clear, for example, in relation to Salisbury, we gathered the evidence and we gathered a coalition of countries in order to put that forward. We don't actually, as a regular... Hold on, Andrew. We don't regularly just throw out allegations. We're actually rather targeted in the way we do it. And in relation to this one, we have the National Cyber Security Centre has set out the details, and we've done so in tandem with the Americans and the Canadians. It's very clear Russia did this.
All I'm saying is the Russians say that you throw out
evidence. Of course they do.
The Russians say that. And I'm asking you where the evidence is.
Well, we're obviously quite careful with something like cyber about what we can put out, but the National Cyber Security Centre has set out in the statement it made the details so that it's very clear and people can judge for themselves. And we've done so with our Canadian and American counterparts precisely because what Russia is doing is not just aimed at the research and development for a vaccine in the UK, but internationally. And it's appalling, it's abhorrent, and we're calling it out so that the world knows.
The ambassador also said that there were cyber attacks on the Russian constitutional process, the new referendum this year, which resulted in the new July laws and so forth, coming from UK territory. Do you know anything about that?
I think it's chaff that's being put out to distract from the very serious charge that we're laying, and frankly, I didn't think it had much credibility.
So if British vaccine scientists are under attack from foreign players, what are we doing to protect them? Are we first of all protecting them in a new way, and what are we doing to do that?
Well, again, and you know, with these things, we're very careful precisely so that we don't expose rather than reinforce our defences. But one of the reasons that we call these things out is so that people are aware of it. We, of course, will give advice and guidance about how we can strengthen our domestic resilience. But
they are being better protected.
Of course, that's really important. But the key thing here is the deterrence of us internationally with our partners calling Russia out so that the world knows that they're engaged in this, frankly, pariah-type behaviour when the rest of the world is trying to come together in a spirit of collaboration to tackle this awful virus.
Let me turn to something I asked Lisa Nandy about, which is Chinese action against the Uighur people. Do you think the Uighurs are the victims of genocide?
Well, with genocide, it's such a specific definition. I
have it here.
But you have to be very careful. But the fact is, whatever the legal label, it is clear that there are gross egregious human rights abuses are going on, which is why in New York, in Geneva at the UN, we raised this with 27 partners. First time it's been done to call out the government of China for its human rights abuses of the Uyghurs, also Hong Kong. So we're working with our international partners on this, and it is deeply, deeply troubling. And the reports and the human aspect of it, from forced sterilisation to the education camps, are reminiscent of something we have not seen for a long, long time. And this is from a leading member of the international community that wants to be taken seriously and with whom, frankly, we want a positive relationship. But we cannot see behaviour like that and not call it out, albeit, of course, with our partners in the right way.
Well, let's turn to Hong Kong, which I also talked to the Chinese ambassador about. Are we going to tear up the extradition treaty with Hong Kong?
So when I set out on the 1st of July, the approach that we're taking on BNOs, but also other measures, I said we would conduct a review of our extradition arrangements and also a range of other measures that we might wish to take. I've now, with the Home Secretary and the rest of government, concluded that review. I will update the House of Commons on what further measures we're taking tomorrow.
Well, if you do tear up that extradition treaty, and if you impose the Magnitsky Act sanctions on individuals, you heard the ambassador saying there'll be very, very severe repercussions from China. Can I put it to you, that's something we are not strong enough as a country to actually do?
Well, people have said that about the offer that we've made on BNOs. They'll say about lots of things. I'm the one with this government, and this is the Prime Minister, who introduced the Magnitsky sanctions precisely because we are going to target the individuals responsible for gross human rights abuses. In relation to the designations that come in the future, I'm not going to preempt or prejudge the process. It's not quite right, as Lisa Nandy suggested, that you can just willy-nilly decide to sanction X or Y. You have to, as we have done with Magnitsky, with the Rohingya, with North Korea, build up an evidence base, and that takes a long time to do because you've got to identify accurately and responsibly those involved.
We are nonetheless going to see a bit of a meltdown, I suspect, in Hong Kong later in the year, around the time of the elections and so forth. There have been reports that we are now expecting about 200,000 Hong Kongers to want to come here, maybe perhaps be allowed to come here as well. Is that, roughly speaking, I don't want to pin you to exact figures, roughly speaking, the kind of numbers the British government's thinking about?
You're right, we're very focused on the September LegCo elections. We've made this offer, it's an offer of principle to BNOs. I think the assessment of the numbers is carefully being looked at all the time. We could see, I'm not going to comment on the individual numbers, and I don't recognise that particular number that was apparently leaked, but we look at it very carefully. I think the one thing I would say is I think the majority will want to stay in Hong Kong. I just think we judge that that's what they like to do. Others will go to countries in the region. And one of the things I've done since I announced our offer is talk to our international partners. So what you will see is not just the UK making offers on immigration status, as we've done, and we are the leaders in this. You'll see others now following suit, and that's positive.
But there are a lot of people in Hong Kong who are really, really worried at the moment, worried about their own future. If it was something like 200,000 people, would we accept them?
Well, we're not going to put a cap on numbers. I've made that clear from the outset.
So the answer is yes. One very, very quick domestic question. Is it really time for us to go back to work in offices?
Well, what we've said is from the 1st of August, while we're carefully monitoring the virus, we do need to get the economy back firing on all cylinders as best we can. We know we're in the middle of a severe downturn, and so we're making sure with employers that they've got the COVID-secure workplaces in place. We've had great cooperation with business, and we're also saying to employers, you know, you've got this remote working facility. We know that that's important. I think we'll all do a bit more remote working in the future, but we also trust employers to say, actually, do you know what, we do need more people coming back to work, and therefore we're giving them that discretion. I think that's right.
All right, Dominic Raab, not as much time as usual. It's been a very, very busy morning. Thanks very much indeed. That's all from me. Thanks to all my guests. We'll now be off air until